So anyway, the funeral was good. One of the best parts of the whole trip was I got to see my sister Julie for the first time in a long time. She's awesome. I think she's like 60. I'm 46. It was just so great. We always had a great connection. When I was born, she was a very young teenager and loved to like take me to the mall and take me everywhere, and was just like always this great, like almost second mom in the family. But just a great sister too. Super cool. It was so good to hang out with her. We went to a playground, which was like what our dad sold, which is a great metaphor, you know, being a playground salesman. I wrote an essay called How to Build a Playground about my life because I was a playground installer for a long time because of the Family Connect. We went and sat by this playground and we just like talked about like who was Farrell Smith. Not that formally, but like Dad was crazy. What was his deal? It was so positive and like this booster for everybody and just like, But, you know, I also voted for the Reagan tax cuts and stuff. Come on, dude. But anyway, great trip. My nieces and nephews are all so cool. They're like the coolest hipsters you've ever seen. I'm like, what? That's crazy. Ages 15 to 27. Oh, but I was saying in the previous video, I got to see my old cousin that I grew up with and her whole family. But Cammy and I were like best friends when we were like age 0 to 7. And it was crazy how much I lit up to see her. Like I really felt like genuine happiness and joy inside me, like to see my cousin that I like when I was 7, my parents got called to Austria on a Mormon mission, and so we were there for 3 years living with all these Mormon missionaries. It was crazy. There's a chapter in the memoir, that's for sure, written in the form of scripture. Book of Mikey, another testament of Mikey, title of that chapter. Anyway, so I went by Mikey as a little kid. My cousins were all calling me that, and it was crazy. But Cammy and I were both like, you! It was so great. I don't think we'd seen each other since like a couple of weddings as adults. And what a bummer, because I used to love those cousins so much. I wish I hadn't been so hung up on like all the Mormonism in the family, but it is like it was very rough for me at different times, and it pushed me away from. I was one of the first people in the family to leave the church. Great that all my siblings got out now, but it was my sister Leanne, then me. Leanne was discreet about it and still called herself like a cultural Mormon. I was like, rah! And then I went out and I think I made a lot of noise while doing so. Disturbed the family for a while. So everyone's out. Now my younger sibling is trans. There have been all these divorces in the family. It is a shattered, fragmented Mormon family in many ways, but some people are doing successfully. One's a best-selling children's book author, YA fantasy author. One's vice president of sales of a major playground company. One recently sold his dining room table and coffee table for money. I'm going to be a successful author too. I believe in it. Maybe it'll be after I'm dead, but I don't think so. I think I'm moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky. I'm already on the east side. I rode the bus today getting back from the rental car. I think I said it. A little cross section of Albuquerque. I gotta say, it seems to be skewing more poor at this moment, like very poor and destitute. I looked around and saw a couple of people that were just on the bus. The rest looked pretty rough. One person was rapping to him or herself. I wasn't sure insistently, but just too quiet for me to hear the details. And then when this person was getting off the bus, I was all, you're a good rapper. Because I like to be positive and spread positive vibes in the community. And I actually did sense a beat there. When you hear the music of the lowest castes, you've always got to listen because it's horrifying and it gets in your blood. And it's also what it is, you know. Do you ever hear a song from like a completely anhedoniad person, just depressed to the point of no serotonin whatsoever? My younger sibling, now sister, had this song when recording as Jefferson Smith called Will I Live to Be an Old Man? And I was like, it's like, it makes Nick Drake look like upbeat pop music or something. It's grim. I'm trying to get on that topic. Remember, I wish Squirrel would come in. My daughter Snora's coming over. That's cool. I'm sorry this is in 3 parts, this kind of single video. Dad was an interesting guy, and the funeral didn't even start to get into it. When he was a kid, he explored the sewers underneath LA. Would sometimes come up in like a racetrack and be like, what? Climbed oil rigs in old LA. Frolicked among the orange groves. Enrolled in Rebel Without a Cause type contests for local media, regional media. Wanted to be James Dean early on. Mormoned out, but that Mormonism brought him to Berlin when the wall was going up. He was in Berlin when the wall was going up. And I was in Berlin when the wall was coming down, when he was in Austria with the whole family as a mission president in 1989. The piece I have of the Berlin Wall right there. I like to grind it into powder and drink it. Not true. History, I say. That's some hard water. Huh. My dad loved a pun. Interesting guy. I'm convinced he saved somebody from the FLDS polygamist cult. And I talked about that in this German thing. Not German, Mormon thing. I swear this story's going somewhere. But I thought my comments were well received, and I was moderately prepared. Less than prepared, like this middle point on the spectrum of unprepared to prepared. I mean, yes, I'd gone over everything and made bullet points, but my notes were too scraggly for easy access. They weren't like neatly bullet pointed and formatted. They were written out like 4 pages of text, mostly with some bullet points, some underlinings and so on. But he was a pilot. He had his pilot's license early on and would look for the lost Dutchman's treasure in the Superstitions Mountains, flying all over it. He seemed fascinated by the story of Buddy Holly and loved his music. Was a total like 50s teen who loved Buddy Holly, Elvis, and some real lamos like Pat, what's that guy's name? Pat Boone. But I actually like gained a real appreciation for 40s and 50s music from him, and some early 60s music. Like he loved the Carpenters. He took us to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when I was a teenager, and that was a great trip. The Further bus was parked outside, or a replica. All stuff that belonged to Kurt Cobain and Bob Dylan and everybody awesome. And old Dylan notebook pages, that was a thrill for me. He was a big fan. I think it was partly his movie fandom and that he saw R-rated movies and things that kept him from being like a high-ranking Mormon official. Because he swam in that air. One of his best friends was Joseph McConkie, son of an apostle and prolific LDS nonfiction author. Kind of like lost some literal faith in later years, I think, in some of his writings, but maybe not. He wrote the very short introduction volume on Mormonism, I noticed. And I had met him many times because he was like my dad's friend from Vietnam. Family had all kinds of connections like that. Like my Uncle Steve, my mom's brother, who has lived in Hawaii forever and worked at the Polynesian Cultural Center for the church and taught at the college, I think. Hey, what about him? Oh, when he was on a mission, his mission companion in France was Mitt Romney. Sheesh. I once wrote a Twitter feed for Mitt Romney called Secret Mitt Romney. And it was with 1 T for Mitt, because that's all it would fit. I swear I'm legit. I just can't quit. But I loved my version of Secret Mitt Romney. I decided I wanted it to be as apolitical as possible while just kind of generally making these figures ridiculous, but I wanted it to be really surreal. And so I wrote this Twitter feed for Mitt Romney that it was like his secret Twitter feed that he thought nobody could read, but it's just a regular Twitter feed. And in this version, he's raised by a feral cat lady of the Ozarks. It's like a cat hoarder that lives in the Ozarks and trash, and that she would like get him to fight toddlers with a knife strapped to his wrist when he was a little kid. Anne was grown in a lab from Hitler's DNA, and Mitt was always like eating stuff that shouldn't be eaten. Like he's all, "You can do it. I believe in you. Set big goals. Don't think you can eat a brick? File it down into a powder. Mix it with water. This is doable." Something like that. But and one I loved from him was everyone always asked me about my secret Mormon underwear, but nobody ever asked me about my secret fruit leather vest. Got distracted. I had a whole scene with my neighbor, and now I'm trying to remember. My cat's out there, and the neighbor's talking to her. Well, R.I.P. Dad. You're a great guy, cool guy, interesting person.